Speakerphone.
Okay.
Hey guys, this is Wheels. Sorry it took us a little longer than normal, but I had to take a phone call, very important phone call. Yeah, who's this?
Hey, Wheels, it's your buddy Drew Morgan calling from the International Space Station.
Awesome. Great to talk to you, Drew. Thank you for your call, and thank you for the pictures you've been sending down and your great work up there as well. We're live online now with some listeners on YouTube, but we're just going to be talking about different ways we can approach this quarantine period for us. And I'm going to tell them a little bit about what we do to train to fly on the space station and ways that we can that we can not only survive but thrive in an environment like you're in right now on the space station. Can you just give us some pointers about things that you do? I know you've been off the planet for a couple of or several months now, and away from your family and isolated on the space station. Can you give us some tips on things that you do?
Yeah. Hey, Wheels. I mean, as you know, I've been up here going on 9 months now, and I'm going to be returning to the Earth very soon here in the next less than 2 weeks, about 2 weeks almost exactly. And I'm going to land on an Earth that has changed quite a bit since I left. And but I think that there are a number of things, the way that I've lived up here for the last 9 months, that will be very applicable when I return to Earth. And Wheels, as you know, one of the things that we do up here is we live by a routine. We have a schedule that tells us exactly what we're going to do every day. And by having a schedule and being disciplined about that, it makes the time go by quickly and it makes you more productive. Everything from when you eat, when you sleep, when you exercise. Absolutely. Which brings me to another really important point, which is the importance of getting good sleep and the importance of eating healthy meals and the importance of exercise. And I think a lot of people have found some newly found time that it might be able to work in new things into their schedule. And some of those might be more sleep, more exercise, and taking time to prepare healthier meals. And those are all things. I'm going to return to Earth after 9 months up here, I think healthier than when I left, because I have had time deliberately set aside for all of those things. And so that's what I would encourage people to do, which is to take the time to make a schedule and abide by it.
Okay, awesome. Those are great tips, Drew. And we're finding ourselves now here on our own planet. We're actually locked in our own spaceships, and so our homes where we are, we're trying as much as we can to stay home, and so our home has become a spaceship, whether it's a small apartment or a flat of some sort, or a home, a single family home, or an apartment complex or what have you. It's like our own little spaceship, and we get resupply vehicles, much like you guys get on the space station. Only ours comes in different delivery trucks from different places. And when we want to go outside, I know you've done several spacewalks as well, Drew. And it's become now where when we go outside, we actually have to think about precautions that we can take as we go about our daily lives outside as well. And we thank you for your time. And we're going to talk a little bit about the training that you went through and the things that you're exercising every day now in the way of self-care, taking care of yourself, taking care of your equipment, taking care of each other, and then getting to a point where you can thrive in a very, very challenging environment. So we thank you for your time, Drew. And thank you so much for the work that you're doing, and we wish you a safe landing at the end of April.
All right. Thanks so much, Wheels. It was great to be with you. Everyone, take care. This will pass, and I look forward to being back on the Earth here in just a few short weeks.
Thank you so much, Drew. Now get back to work.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah, bye-bye, Will.
Bye-bye. Okay, that was pretty cool. Sorry about that. Sorry for the delay getting started, but that was Drew Morgan, currently on board the International Space Station. He returns to Earth at the end of April, and he will have spent 9 months in space. And so, sorry for the delay getting started. Hopefully you stayed online with us. I wanted to thank the Great Lakes Science Center. I'm calling from my home in northeastern Ohio. And my name is Doug Wheelock, a grizzled veteran astronaut at NASA. Everybody at NASA calls me Wheels, and now Drew and the younger astronauts that are flying in space call me Papa Wheels. So you can feel free to call me Papa Wheels as well. And we're going to have some public service announcements that will flash into the screen from time to time. So just sort of, I'll kind of push those to the side, but we'll have those reminders as the time goes on. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the situation that we're currently in, because for the last 20 years of my life, I've been training to fly in space and flying in space, and it's a unusual experience being in quarantine than going to space and actually being in isolation. I spent 6 months aboard the space station in 2010, and I learned some things through our training, and it's actually things that I apply to my life now as well. And hopefully it'll be tips that will help you as you go about these challenging times. And so I'm going to have some kind of fun cue cards for you, and then I'm going to try to give some tips on how you can not only survive this period of time, but really thrive in your own development of yourself and development of your family, being supportive of your family and friends, and then just recreating the picture that you once had of your life. And like you, the picture that I had of my life, that we all had, was this beautiful mosaic of all of our different experiences, all of our different hopes and dreams. And it was kind of like a jigsaw puzzle with this beautiful picture. You know, when they make jigsaw puzzles, they actually make the beautiful picture and then they cut it into 1,000 pieces and then dump it in a box. And normally we have, the box has a picture on it, what the end result is going to be. And metaphorically, what's happened to us now across the globe, no matter where you're calling in from, what's happened to us, it's almost like our beautiful life that we once knew, what we once knew as normal for us, our normal routine, has been cut up into 1,000 pieces or 1,000,000 pieces and dumped in front of us. You know, so we have this pile of pieces of our life that we once knew, and oh, by the way, they took the box away. So we remember things that we had, and we have to rebuild now. So I remember when I was a little kid, I used to put together jigsaw puzzles with my grandpa and grandma, and every time I went over there, it was always a more intricate puzzle, and sometimes it was 5,000 pieces, and it took up an entire dining room table that my grandma and grandpa were putting together. And I remember my grandpa letting me help with those things. And I think back now, had I had to do that without a picture, without the box, and not knowing what it looks like, that's precisely the situation that we're in now. So we're going to have a little fun with this, and then and I'll give you some tips that we learn in astronaut training, and how to stave off some of the fear that we have of the unknown, and some of the situations when there's not a lot of clarity in what we know about what's going on. So a couple important safety tips when we're going through this situation. The first thing is, step one is don't panic. Don't panic. It's so important because when fear creeps in, fear is a basic human emotion. And normally we're fearful of the unknown. And so things that scare us, we hear the news, we hear a lot of it is, we don't know what's true, what's not. all we know is the life we once knew has been shattered into pieces, and now we have to rebuild. And so when we don't panic, we don't allow fear. Now, fear is going to be there. It's probably going to be ever present. And some of you may be feeling fearful now, or have anxiety and things like that. And those are our normal human reactions to an unknown condition. And so, so the first bit of advice I wanted to let you know the way we train our astronauts is, you are not alone. You're not alone, and we are alone together. Hashtag alone together. And so take a look around you. Now, you may be by yourself, but there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. And that's a very, very important hurdle that we can clear, and we can clear that together. And the way that we do that, because being lonely, no one likes to feel lonely. And I remember being in space and having those, being away from my family and friends for so long, that having those feelings creep in, that I felt kind of lonely. And I had to stave off those feelings because I knew that I was not alone. And so you are not alone as well. And even if you're sequestered or quarantined by yourself, you always have people to reach out to. Hopefully you have family and friends that you can reach out to. Part of this is communication. Building this jigsaw puzzle is going to take communication to put those pieces back together of your life. And if you don't have those people that you can reach out to, you can always reach out to us. You can reach out to us at the Great Lakes Science Center if you have questions, and we can get you some assistance as needed. You can also reach out to our folks at NASA Glenn. I'm working at NASA Glenn Research Center now. You can even tweet Papa Wheels, and I'll make sure that we get some help, and so you don't feel alone. And of course, as always, you can send your questions on social media to hashtag Ask NASA, and we'll get you. We'll make sure that you completely understand that you are not alone, and we're alone together. So I wanted to go over, like, wash your hands. Oh, we do have some questions, and I wanted to, as we build these questions, I want you to kind of think as we walk through. Now, we talked about step 1 is don't panic. Step 2 is breathe. Step 3 is manage your fear with gratitude. And then step 4 is take action. Okay, so now let's look at what that means in your life. So we're going to put together this jigsaw puzzle, and so if the pieces of your life or the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle were, this is obviously also an activity that you could do as a family or by yourself if you have a jigsaw puzzle, or you can call a resupply ship to have them deliver a jigsaw puzzle, because this is kind of fun, especially parents with young children. This is kind of a fun exercise because you can get that jigsaw puzzle, dump the pieces out on the table, and then take the box away and have them work together to solve the problem, to figure out what the picture is. And so it's kind of metaphorically what our lives are like now. We know the picture that we want to paint. It's probably going to be different than what before, some of our actions and the way we can communicate. And hopefully it's changes for the better, where we stay a little more connected. And so the first thing we would do with these puzzle pieces is you look for the corners, right? So we see different colors, and so first of all, we turn the pieces over so we could see the colored side of it where the painting was, the mosaic. And then we look for the corner pieces. So I'm going to give you 4 tips on how you can rebuild the picture of your life. And so up in this upper right corner is, I tried to cut this like a puzzle piece, but this is you. This is you and who you are. Now I'm not, what I mean is 4 different categories. It's really like heart, mind, body, and soul. So it's who you are and your health, your own personal health, your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, and your spiritual health as well. So all of these things make up who you are and who you want to be. And so start with that piece of the puzzle and get that in place. And then we're going to build on those things. And, there may be some people out there, when we look to the past, it's like, gosh, if I could do it all over again, I'd do it differently. Here's your chance. Here's your chance to do it all over again as you rebuild that beautiful picture of your life. Over in this corner is friends and family. Can you see that? Family and friends. Family and friends, because they're interconnected, of course. All the corners are connected, inextricably connected, by the way. And so family and friends, and I would go even further. Every beating heart that's around you, including your pets. And so this is a way that we can connect, because when you're feeling stressful, if you have a pet out there, if you're feeling stressful, that your pets feel the very same thing as well. So like Drew was saying on our phone call, the things that you have built into your routine, continue those things, and don't let those things break down. Now, because we're not in school, because we're not going to work anymore, and we're staying in our homes, this is precisely the moment where you have to work hard to keep those routines. So let me give you some really easy things to start out with. First of all, set goals, set daily goals and weekly goals for yourself and for your family. And if you don't know, if you're overwhelmed, it's like, I don't even know where to start. Start by making your bed. When you get up in the morning, make your bed, because there's something that takes only just a couple of minutes and you're done. And you could look at that as like, okay, that was the first thing on my list, and you're making progress. The next thing is change out of your PJs. Don't spend all day, watching the news or watching people tweet facts and gossip on social media, and stay in your PJs all day. Get dressed as if you normally would. If you want to dress for like you were going to school, or like you're going to go for a walk with your pet, or a walk with your family members around the block, or in the neighborhood, or into a park or something. So, and then when you do that, when you get dressed, then it sort of psychologically, it builds that psychological part of you, where not all is lost, because hopefully you're healthy, and for those that are struggling right now with sickness and actually may have this virus, or you may know somebody or a family member, my heart goes out to you, and as much as you can, stay connected to those people so they don't feel alone either. And blessings if you're healthy, and let's do the things that we know to do to stay that way. So a little public service announcement: wash your hands. So the other corners of this of our life that we're trying to build, of course, I'm going to put down here in the bottom corner, hobbies and interests. And these are the things. These are kind of your areas of passion, right? Don't let those fall away because of fear creeping into your life, anxiety, fear of the unknown. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that anymore. I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue doing that hobby that I had. And so this is where music, hiking, writing, these kind of things come in. Or even maybe create a task of things that you want to do around your home that you've always, think of those things. It's like, gosh, if I only had time, I would do this, and fill in the blank. And it's going to be different for all of us. And when you think about those things, those are some of the things that you can put on your task list to sort of build up this puzzle of our lives that we're trying to piece together. And then the bottom corner is I'm putting it as higher purpose. Normally, this is our chosen profession, our passion that we're living out. And my advice always, and even more so now, is to find something you love. Find something you love and work and study and practice with so much passion that one day people won't be able to take their eyes off of you. That's the goal and your higher purpose. And that's for you to decide what that is. And then we can start piecing together the pieces of our lives. But you have to get those four corners anchored and begin to rebuild. And that's when we go to step 4, which is take action. So you can take action by setting these daily goals, by weekly goals, and then as we start restructuring our life and painting that beautiful picture of our existence as we knew it or as we desire it to be, our greatest dreams, always repeat. Step 5 is repeat. Just go back and redefine those things. Of course, we remember what step 1 is, right? So do not panic. You are not alone, and we're in this together. So let's go ahead to questions, I think, with the...
Very quickly, before questions, there's a spot in the station tonight.
Okay. In the Cleveland area? So,
yes.
Okay, so for those in the Cleveland area, actually for those listening in around the world, if you want to see the space station flies over at a 51.6 degree inclination. So if you're in the inhabitable part of the Earth, you're going to have space station flyovers. And what you're going to see is either just before sunrise or just after sunset, when the sun is still shining on the space station and you're in darkness, you'll be able to see the space station fly over as the brightest star in the sky. And all you have to do is go to spot the station and put in your location, and it'll give you the times and dates and inclination and azimuth that you can look for the space station. So write that down, spot the station. This is something fun you can do on a clear night, and put in your location wherever you are. And I'm being told that there's a spot the station over Cleveland tonight, 2 of them tonight. So go ahead and put in spot the station, and then put in where your location is, and it'll give you the dates and times of those station passes. So wave to Drew up there on the station. And so let's go to some other questions.
How do you eat in space, and what is your favorite space food?
How do you eat in space, and what are your favorite space food is the question I'm getting. And I think this is a question that I got from some kids in UK as well. And so this is actually like real space food it didn't look appetizing when I was on the space station, so I brought it home with me to do a little show and tell. This is actually shrimp fried rice. So you can see what that looks like. It's dehydrated, and it comes in these bags, and we have this little port here that we can add either hot or cold water, and then we rehydrate this food, and then we eat it, and it's not super tasty. So, but my favorite food in space, and here's some cornbread as well. This is cornbread dressing that I brought back from the space station, and I would say my favorite food were things we didn't get it often, but often when we got resupply ships, they would put in fresh fruit and vegetables, which was awesome. And because they were so, your sense of smell and your sense of taste are a little dulled in space. And so when you get these aromatic foods up there, like fresh fruit, like an orange, something like that, it was amazingly like intoxicating. The smell and the taste of fresh fruit was wonderful. Of the packaged foods, I really enjoyed the soups. And actually, we had Russian food, and we had U.S. food and European food and Japanese food as well. So we had a mixture of things that came up representing all the cultures, the cultural culinary delights of our international partners. And so we were able to sample those food items as well. And I really liked the soups that were up there. And I think, not to diss anyone else, but I think the Russians had the tastiest soup for sure on board. Next question.
They just want to know how you eat.
Okay, so how you eat. I'm sorry about that. The second part of that question was how you eat. So we rehydrate this bag, and of course everything's floating around. That's why we put this this little dot of Velcro on here, so we could stick it to our clothing or stick it to the wall, and it doesn't go floating away. And so for these food packages, you can see it's encapsulated in plastic. And so what we do is very carefully cut like an X in this top layer of plastic. And so then you have 4 flaps that come down because and it'll stay in there until you start pulling it out with a spoon or something. So you have to be very careful. So what you do is you take one of the flaps back and put a spoon in and just take out a little bit. And as you're pulling the spoon out, put the flap back down so everything else doesn't come out after it. And so you have to eat very carefully because when things get floating around, it's bad for our filters. It's bad to breathe these things in. And so so that's how we eat in space, very carefully. It's so that we have to relearn lots of different basic functions. The way we drink in space, we actually have these drink bags. And again, this one is one that I brought home from the space station with me. This is orange pineapple drink, and it's powder inside of here. And we have this straw, and I'll demonstrate that in a second, but we have this poured as well. We add either hot or cold water in there. If it's coffee, might add hot water. And then we just kind of mix it up and let it sit and let that dissolve into the water. And then our straws are a little bit different in space because everything is floating around. We have a lock on our straw. So there's the function of the lock is like this. And so I'm not going to put this in my mouth because I had my hands all over it. So exercising good. Yes. Wash your hands. So what we do is we have this straw and we put it inside the bag. Once we have it mixed together, we put it inside the bag just like this. And you can see that this has Velcro on it as well. And so normally what I would do is during the day, I'd have a bag of water that was attached to my trousers. And I would just kind of fly around. And I always had it there with me while I was working as well. And so the important thing in space is when you drink out of this straw, because everything's in free fall, there's seemingly no gravity. When you open the straw and begin to drink your juice or coffee or what have you, if you just take the straw out of your mouth, the entire bag is going to empty into this big ball of in this case, orange pineapple drink. And you don't want that to happen. So there's some important steps that you need to take when you're drinking out of a bag in space. You put the straw in your mouth, unlock it, and then drink what you want to drink. And then before you pull the straw out, you lock it back up. So very carefully. Some other questions?
What is your favorite exercise to do in space?
What is my favorite exercise? So great question, because this is one of the important things that you can do for the U piece that's up in this corner, remember, the physical part of your well-being. And so just to kind of keep physically active, not only keep your mind active, but keep your body active as well. And so on the space station, we have everything's floating around. So it's you might think it's kind of difficult to do exercise. And we have 3 exercise countermeasures on board the space station. We have a cycle ergometer where we strap ourselves down to a bicycle seat, and we can increase the resistance on a bicycle, like a bicycle wheel. And so we just turn that and do our exercise that way. We can vary the resistance, and we can also, the goal is to gradually increase the resistance. So when 6 months, or in Drew's case, as you heard him mention, he's going to end up being up there for 9 months. When you come back to Earth, you're strong enough where you can be able to stand up and walk around. And so we have the cycle ergometer on board. We also have a treadmill on board. Kind of funny, it's actually mounted on the wall of the space station. But in space, with everything floating around and you can work and exercise on the ceiling, on the walls, on the floor, what have you. And so the treadmill works in a very similar fashion, only we wear a harness, and we put that harness on, and we attach in 4 points to a series of bungees and chain links to pull us down, and we can actually measure our weight that we're pulling to on the treadmill. And of course, by the end of your expedition on board the space station, you want to be able to pull to your body weight as much as possible. And then you can run on that treadmill either in an active running, or you can do a passive as well, where you could just kind of turn the belt yourself with your own working against the resistance of the belt. And so that's a great exercise on board. We also have what's called an ARED. It's an advanced resistive exercise device, and it actually uses compressed air to give us resistance. It looks like a universal gym, like a weight machine, and we can do curls, we can do squats, we could do bench presses, and all these different things that we normally do at the gym. And again, we use the resistance of the air to kind of give us that feeling of lifting these heavy weights. And of course, our feet are firmly planted on a platform that's actually moving. So when you look at someone exercising on the system, you may have seen videos. I think if you go to nasa.gov and go to the NASA YouTube channel, there are ways that you could see this exercise machine working. It's actually kind of you're sort of isolated in itself, and it's isolated from the station as well. So those are the three main types of exercise we do. Now for you, while you're in your spaceship during this period of quarantine, because you are now on a month-long mission, right? So or maybe more, maybe it's less, we'll see. But this is some of the uncertainty we have in our space missions as well. You think you might be going up for 3 months or 5 months or what have you, but it might turn into a year or 9 months, or it might be shorter. So you have to kind of get yourself in the frame of mind. It's like, it doesn't matter to me what the end point is. My goal is to do something every day to exercise my body. So if you're at home in a rural area, now when you go outside your home, remember, it's like going out on a spacewalk. You're in your own spaceship with your family, or maybe you're by yourself or with a pet or something. That's your spaceship. So now you have to think like an astronaut when you're going to go out on a spacewalk. If you're going to go out on a spacewalk outside of your home, you have to think about several things. What kind of, whether you're in a hot or cold environment, what kind of clothing you're going to wear, if you decide to wear a mask or something like that. And of course, we want to keep they call it social distancing. I like to call it physical distancing because this is, I think our interaction today is social closeness. So I'm going to call it physical distancing. So keep your distance between others. And if you're in a rural area and you can walk by yourself or with a pet or something, or maybe with your family members to a park or down the street or around the block or something, do that. If you're able to do that, please do that. That should be an active part of your everyday life to keep your physical body energized and healthy. It's too easy to stay in your jammies and watch the news. Don't do that. Okay, so this is some of the helpful hints that we want to pass on to you from NASA on behalf of NASA. So in your home, if you really are not in a place where you can take a long walk or something, there are things in your home where you can do exercise. One of the easiest ones you can do is just using your own body weight, just squats. You take a chair and do squats in your chair. If you have stairs in your home, either down to a basement or up to a second level or something, do those stairs every day. Make it part of your daily goal is I'm going to do the stairs 10 times or what have you, and try to increase that. Maybe by the end of our quarantine, you'll be going up and down the stairs 100 times every day, and you'll be happier with your physical fitness and with your health as well. And so do those things. There are certain things you could do: push-ups, you could do jumping jacks, sit-ups. There's lots of things you can do in your home that if you can't get outside for some reason, try those things. If it's a rainy day or what have you, try those things at home as well. Next question.
What was it like in space to stay connected with friends and family?
What was it like to be in space and stay connected with friends and family? So just like hugely important. It was actually what kept me. So we're talking about these two upper pieces, staying connected, and in between here, of course, in a jigsaw puzzle, there's lots of little pieces in there that have a flat edge on the border. And that's the connective tissue in our lives. And those if we don't make that connection, we are not whole. And so we can't rebuild our lives unless we do it together. And so it was vitally important. And it was nice for Drew to call down. I know there's some people that have logged in after we talked to Drew, but Drew Morgan from the space station called us early on. And you heard how vitally important it is for him to stay connected to his family. And we have those resources on board the space station, and it's a form of a computer. We have an IP phone on board where we can call any place on Earth. And we also have video conferencing through our laptops as well. Exactly what I'm doing with you right now. And so this is what keeps us connected to the planet, because when we're up there, after a few weeks, trust me, you start to feel this real isolation. You can look out the window, and of course, it's beautiful. The sight of our beautiful blue planet, just like hanging there in the vast, dark, empty sea of space. And you look down, it's like there's everything I've ever known, every word ever spoken, every person that ever lived. Down there, my family's there, and I'm not there. And so that is a great analogy to what we're going through now. We're looking out sort of virtually at the life we once had. If your schoolmates, the people that you work with, even your close extended family members that may even live just down the block, but you want to keep that distance because maybe someone's a little more compromised, either older and are in bad health or something like that, and you just want to do your part to make sure they're safe as well. And so, if we don't reestablish that communication, this is probably the most important part of flying in space. It's the most important part of any relationship we have, and it's the most important part of what you should be doing now. In your place of quarantine is reaching out to those people that are feeling lonely too. And so when you're able to master, it's like, I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to let fear control me. I'm going to control fear, and I'm going to do things to rebuild my life. When you make that decision, and then you fully understand you're not alone, then I want you to look around you for every beating heart that's around you. And we say, sort of jokingly, every beating heart that's in your orbit, your family members that are in the home you're living in, you're quarantined in, your family members that are distant, that you can only reach by phone or maybe a video conference or something like this. Do that. Don't hesitate to reach out, because you never know, because we're not alone in this, you never know when you're able to master those things and control the fear and anxiety in your life. When you're able to do that, then your greater purpose to help redefine what it is about you in your quest to become the person that you want to become. It's your obligation to reach out to those people, to help them, maybe give them tips for their anxiety, for the fear that they're facing as well. And of course, follow the guidelines that authorities are putting out, both locally and here in the States, statewide and nationally and around the world, the guidelines that your first responders and medical professionals are putting out. And oh, by the way, let's cheer them on as much as possible, the people that are on the front lines of this. Not only the people that are sick and in dire straits, but the people that are helping them as well, helping them to get well, our nurses and our doctors, our medical workers, our pharmacists, our EMTs, the people that have the healing hands. We can hold them up. If you're a person of faith, pray for them. If you're a person that has means where you can help them with meals or just sort of, I've seen, actually I saw this in, I believe it was in the UK, in London, and also I've seen it in New York as well, that they figured out when the shift changes are in the hospitals and clinics, and everyone just sort of throws open their windows, comes out on their balconies and claps and cheers as the first responders are changing shift. I think that's a wonderful thing, and it's probably the greatest act of love that we can do together and that we can do for each other. So reach out, make those connections.
Can you use your cell phone in space, and do they have Wi-Fi?
Good question. So the question is, can you use your cell phone in space, and do they have Wi-Fi? We can't use our cell phones. We actually leave them on the planet, but we have a lot of laptop computers. We have iPads on board now, where we can link in for procedures and stuff like that. And guess what? For all of our procedures, even if whether they're emergency procedures or what have you, step one in all of our procedures is don't panic. So it's a good first step that we sort of jokingly say that in space, but the first step is to not panic. But we have Wi-Fi on board the space station, and it's a kind of a LAN system, a local network, where all the computers are centralized to a centralized server that then communicates with mission control in Houston as well, which, let me put a plug in for our folks in mission control that are working around the different control centers, both in Houston in the US, in Huntsville, Alabama, in Cologne, Germany, in Oberpfaffenhofen, Germany. I said that right, I think. In Tsukuba, Japan, and in Moscow in Russia. These folks are keeping the space station flying, keeping the science going, and returning those things. And those people, we operate. NASA is the first place I've ever been where we practice failure when we're doing our simulations. We practice these things because these are the things that make us most afraid in life, is the fear of the unknown. And so every day when we do a simulation in mission control in Houston, it's like dumping a box of pieces of a jigsaw puzzle out on the table. But guess what? Everybody gets a bunch of little pieces, and the only way, and the flight director gets none. And so it's sort of this analogy where, so the flight director is trying to, and the team is trying to get the crew, keep the crew survive, have the crew survive, and the vehicle survive as well. And so we put together a jigsaw puzzle through this entire simulation, and everyone has a piece. And if you don't contribute your piece, the picture is not complete. And so let that be a good learning point tip in your life as well, especially if you're writing this out in quarantine with family members. Every one of you have your own gifts. You're all individuals. You have your own gifts and bring something to the table. So when it's your time to contribute that piece, that word of encouragement, take a deep breath and to let somebody know that they're not alone, that you're right there beside them and going with them through this. That's very helpful as well.
How do you celebrate holidays in space?
How do you celebrate holidays in space? Much like we do down here, only we're distant from our families. We do have decorations on board the space station, and normally we choose before a major holiday or a birthday. We normally have resupply ships coming to the, maybe like a FedEx ship that you have coming to your spaceship now, or UPS or some other delivery service, Amazon or something coming to the front ship, resupply ship. And so we send things, decorations and cards from friends and family. Again, that making that connection across the top of your picture between you, your health, your heart, mind, body, and soul, and the connection with your friends and family to make things as normal as possible. So we send up decorations, we send up we send up birthday presents and cards and things like that, and we try on major holidays. We try to give the crew the day off as well. So
we have, how do you wash your hands in space, and can you take a shower in space?
How do you wash your hands in space? So while we're talking about washing your hands, remember this, okay? Take a screenshot of that, okay? Take a screenshot, wash your hands, okay? This is the best way, or one of the simplest ways. And then, of course, try not to touch your face. And I'm bad about that because I want to adjust these glasses sometimes, but try to keep your hands away from your face as well. That's a good way for things to practice for you to stay healthy. Now, in space, on the space station, we don't have a shower. So we go for 6, 9, 10, 12 months without a shower. So let that soak in a little bit. So, and oh, by the way, we recycle all of our air. We recycle all of our water on the space station. So we also have a joke that on the space station that yesterday's coffee is tomorrow's coffee. So use that as a teaching point with your families as well, and just kind of think about that and enjoy your coffee. Let's see, I wandered off the question.
How do you wash
your hands? Okay, so
yes.
There's Papa Wheels again, wandering off message. So how do you wash your hands? So what we do on the space station, because we don't have a shower, we really don't have running water, so we fill a bag much like this, just of water out of our resupply system. We fill it with water, and then we take a washcloth and we open this up and kind of squeeze some water, which kind of looks like slime in space, and we get it into the washcloth and we kind of press it in and let it soak in. Wicking works very well. So water will soak, if you press it in, it will soak into a towel or a washcloth or something. And then we can spray some rinseless soap and then kind of use that to take like a hand towel bath that way. So, and that's the way we wash our hands as well. So we just take that towel and just kind of wash our hands like this. So you have to be very careful because everything is floating. And so sometimes when you first get to the space station and you're trying to learn how to do new things like drink out of a bag or eat food out of a bag or brush your teeth or use the potty, you have to remember that everything is floating. And so you just kind of have to use your creativity to make things as routine as they were on Earth.
How many astronauts were on board with you?
How many astronauts were on board with me? When I was up there, when I first went up, there were 3 people already there. And then we had 6 people on board. And then when I was the commander, there was a period of time where I took command of the space station. The 3 folks that were up there shuttled back to the Earth, and we went for a period of about 2 to 3 weeks before the next Soyuz came up with 3 other crew members. And so during my time as commander of the space station, for about 3 weeks, there were just 3 of us, and then for the remainder of that 6 months, there were 6 of us. Good question.
What does the ISS look like?
What does the ISS look like? Well, you can actually go online and take a look at photos of the ISS. It looks like a flying football field coming at you. It's or like a football pitch, I suppose, in other places, a soccer pitch or what have you. The solar arrays kind of stretch out the like big wings. They look kind of like wings, and they're the solar arrays on the space station. When you lay it down on top of a football field, it's actually larger than a football field, but about that size. And the middle part of it looks like, if you've ever had a small pet, like a gerbil or a hamster or something like that, we build these little habit trails, like these little tubes where they kind of crawl through. And that's sort of what the space station, the livable part of the space station is like. It's like this big long habit trail of laboratories that extends the full length of the space station. Then the spine, which is the truss that comes across the top, it's got the solar arrays on the end that look like wings. That's all outside, and that's kind of like the structural support of the space station. And it looks like a big airplane flying at you. So if you go in to spot the station and take a look, and if you can get your hands on binoculars or even a telescope or a small telescope or something like that, and take a look at that space station as it flies over, you can actually make out the shape of the solar arrays and everything. So.
And what time zone does the ISS operate in?
Great question. What time zone is the ISS in? Because you heard Drew saying that it's hard to tell what time it is on the station because we're orbiting the Earth once every 90 minutes or so, and so every 45 minutes we're getting a sunrise or a sunset, and so it's every day on the space station we get 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets, and each of them just individually as beautiful as the next, So while we're orbiting, it's hard to tell what time it is. And so we operate the space station based on Greenwich Mean Time. So the prime meridian through Greenwich, England. So our folks listening in from the UK, your time is right on the same time as the space station. For folks in Houston that are in the control room, they're 5 or 6 hours behind. So guess what? When the crew gets up at 6 a.m. Greenwich, it's about midnight or 1 in the morning in Houston. So and we run the shifts in mission control, and of course that accommodates our control centers around the world as well. So people are coming in at different times based on on an all normalized to Greenwich Mean Time. So we usually get the crew up at 6 o'clock Greenwich. 6 a.m. Greenwich, and then they go to bed. They're supposed to go to bed at 9:30 p.m. Greenwich. Good question.
How do you sleep in space?
How do you sleep in space? And I know I got this question, I think, from Harley in the UK as well about sleeping in space. Sleeping is actually very, very comfortable on the space station or in a spaceship because everything is. We say it's floating around, and to say it's floating or it's 0G is it's a way to picture it in your mind, but we're actually completely captive in the Earth's gravity. We're just falling around the Earth. So we're in free fall around the Earth, but everything on board is free falling as well. So when you go to bed, you have no hot spots. So there's no tossing and turning usually because there's no pressure on your body in the way of forcing it against a hard mattress or something like that, and so it's very, very comfortable and very easy to fall and sleep in space. And so you have to be careful if you're not getting good sleep and you're doing your work and it's in kind of a dark, cool area. You might have a fan blowing. I remember one time, okay, it's just you and I, right? So don't tell mission control this, but one time I was working behind a rack and it was dark and I had a fan kind of circulating the air and I had my flashlight. I just kind of floated it right here so it would shine on what I was doing. And it was so comfortable back there that I just kind of had like one of those little bursts of micro sleep where I opened my eyes and my tools were floating away and my flashlight had started to turn. And so I woke myself up with a cold washcloth of water. And so it's very, very comfortable and very easy to fall asleep in space. So, and when you come back, it's kind of interesting. I was on board for about 6 months in 2010. And when I came back, it was sleep was very interesting because I would wake up, I'd have these dreams that I was still floating, and I would wake up and I would just sort of like put my hands down on the bed. I couldn't figure out if I was on the ceiling or on the wall or something, so it took a little bit of adaptation coming back to Earth as well. So great question about sleep.
Let them know web resources will be posted in the comments section.
Yes, web resources, I'm told, are going to be posted in the comments section of this YouTube channel. Again, we're working with the Great Lakes Science Center that's in Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm currently working at NASA Glenn Research Center in the Cleveland area in Northeast Ohio. And I love the work here. And actually, this is the funnest part of my job, is talking to you and helping you deal with your period in quarantine as well.
One more. Are you allowed to use other countries' supplies in space, or do you just use your own country's supplies? That's
a good question. The question is, are we allowed to use the other country's supplies in space, or do we just use our own? And so this kind of reminds me of something we're still going through in some areas. It's like, is going to the store and having all the toilet paper gone, the paper for your loo in the UK, or the toilet paper you need, or paper towels, everything seems to be gone, which was kind of funny to me at the time. It's like, but if you're out of toilet paper, it's not so funny, I suppose. But we do use each other's resupply. In fact, the resupply ships that come up have they have small containers about this big and about that deep as well, kind of a care package for each individual astronaut / cosmonaut that's on board as well. And these could be cards from their family, maybe photographs, some things to help them with their struggle to rebuild the emotional and mental part of their health, to kind of keep that puzzle piece, that corner of the puzzle piece, in strong and as a pillar in their lives. And so we have those things on board for each individual crew member. Then everything else is for everyone on board. So it could be clothing, it could be food, and it always is actually, always clothing, always food. There's maybe some broken parts something broke on board. It's like, hey, we don't have a spare part. So lots of spare parts that come up this way. Science experiments. And so these are all for the entire crew member. And so we collect up those things and we divvy those out. If they're individual items, they go to those people. And so we do share on board the station, which is actually, it's been a real privilege working with the International Space Station. And I feel super privileged to be able to have a chance to be the commander on board as well, because I think it's a model for our world, how we can take this amazing engineering feat and difficult environment to build this thing. And now this fall, you might remember that we're going to be celebrating 20 years of continuous human presence on board the International Space Station. So it's a real tribute to people of all walks of life, from all of our international partners from countries around the world, with a dream of building a sense of unity and peace and cooperation and collaboration, not only in space, but to be able to take those lessons learned and put them to use here on our planet as well. Do we have other questions? Or
that's what we have. Okay,
so great talking to you again. Sorry for the delay getting started there, and it wasn't Drew's fault. I actually he called me and as I was trying to log on, and but thank you for joining us. Hopefully this will be the first of many interactions. I'd like to come back, and this is I'm in my own home makeshift studio here, so bear with me as I've got a lot of good help here though as my choreographer and my lighting and sound crew, and so just remember those basic things, and so remember those steps. And I won't put those cards up again, but I'll put this one up again. So wash your hands. So as you're rebuilding what you know is normal and rebuilding your life, think back of the things. It's like, gosh, I wish, think back just a month ago or a couple months ago, where maybe some things in your life that you thought, I really need to change as part of my life. I really need to reach out more. I need to read a book. I need to write some poetry or write a song or sing or something like this. All these things they're free and they're easy to do. Now, a lot of times we think of all the liberties we have as people, and people in different countries have different freedoms and different liberties. But the one that we all have in common, that we have no matter where you are in the world or outside of the world, we have the common liberty of thought, the freedom of thought. And by having this, you can actually dream. You can actually carry yourself to space. You can carry yourself to your dream through music, through your art form, through writing. Start a journal. I would encourage people, start a journal and make a daily entry, because I guarantee you that, especially parents with young kids, 20 years from now, 5 years from now, they'll never remember the spring and summer of 2020, how much it changed us as people. Write that down. Leave that as a gift for your children, or maybe one day, if you're planning to have kids one day, take a journal and write that down and pass it on because they're going to want to know, what was it like? Papa Wheels, what was it like when you're going through the quarantine and the challenges that we're facing? And so just remember that, don't panic. Take a deep breath. Take a look around you. Everything's going to be okay. You're not alone. We are alone together. Take a look around for the beating hearts that are in your orbit, okay? And see what ways that you can become yourself better and make that connection to your friends and family to start rebuilding that picture of your life, that beautiful picture that you have, that you've been dreaming about. And if along the way in the past you've said, like, gosh, I wish I had done these things a little differently, or I wish I learned how to play the guitar, or I wish I learned to write more. I always wanted to read that book. If I only had time, I would read a book or something. Well, you have time now. So think about those things that you always wanted to do. And if you have a jigsaw puzzle in your home, pull it out and use these fun steps as a family. Go dust it off. It might be in an attic or down in a basement somewhere. Pull out that jigsaw puzzle, dump it out on the table and put the box away. And as a family, use it as a sort of a metaphor of how you can take what you know and take the pieces of what you once knew as normal and start rebuilding your beautiful picture of your life. So thank you for joining us. Again, look in the comments section of this video, and I think they're going to post the ways that you can contact NASA. But first thing, reach out to family and friends. You can always write to me on Twitter. I'm not like the fastest to respond on Twitter, but I'm happy to do that. And so remember the Great Lakes Science Center. You can contact them. They're always very helpful. And oh, by the way, a lot of our museums and our science centers have virtual tours as well, which is really awesome. And you can go on, take a look at their YouTube pages, take a look at their virtual tours. And NASA Glen is the NASA center where I'm currently working. They have virtual tours of their test facilities and things like that. Very interesting things you can look at there. And all of our museums, I see that a lot of our big art museums, science museums also have virtual tours. So this is a great resource if you're, not only if you have kids, but if you're kids of all ages, if you always wanted to take a tour of the Louvre or something like this, go in there and find those museums. And if they have virtual tours, take those tours and take them with your children as well, your family members, and don't forget your pets as well. So my little dog Lily loves her walks, and so we've increased our level of communication, and I understand now that she looks at a walk as a hunt, a squirrel hunt, and so we're working through those things as well. So peace, and love to you. Be cognizant of the people around you, and be kind and compassionate as well, because those things go a long way. And you're not alone. We're in this together. So it's great spending time with you. Take care.